Okay. No, continue.
Okay. Did
Can
you
we
catch
have screen
what
sharing?
I what? Oh.
The screen sharing, I think it's
Okay.
disabled.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay.
So were you able to catch anything about what I talked about for the skate park?
I remember the skate park. Yeah. You were planning to propose that for the Bonifacio Shrine?
For the area that I showed the slide before this.
I know. Sorry, your basis was the Bonifacio Shrine, but you wanted.
Yeah, but then we wanted there near the LRT next to the school
Oh, okay.
and near the residential area.
Okay.
So were you able to catch me explaining this or not yet?
Yeah, I did. I caught that.
Okay, so yeah, essentially we did want to study the three factors that we saw in this research. So then that's yeah, educating the youth on how to skate and mixing the ages, and then yeah, the shows and stuff. So then really bringing the skate culture into the community and encouraging that community as well. So yeah, actually, before anything, I just wanted to say, like, Jao and I were actually talking about the skate park and whether or not it is a fitting program to place in the area. And we realized how a lot of our um, forms, like our steps and our ramps and everything, are very inviting towards the skating community because they are very interesting courses to be able to challenge their skills and everything like that. So providing a space does give them an area that they're meant to do it and kind of moves their tendencies towards that area instead of doing it around places that are aren't inviting towards them, and also like having a space that kind of invites that community. People are become more welcoming to what they do and stuff like that. Yeah, so this slide actually shows how we wanted to implement it. We yeah, kind of got images from different skate parks that we looked at and kind of studied. So then, because we wanted to extend the skate park from under the LRT towards open space, we wanted to provide it a large area, mainly for the reason of kind of dividing the space into different levels of the skating skills and stuff because we do want a mix in the ages. And we kind of understood how sometimes when people would bring like a certain age group and they would kind of do a lot of tricks within an area, we did want to have some sort of separation in a way, but then they still are connected with each other, so then it doesn't bite kids as well. And within the space, we did want to incorporate commercial spaces as well. So then we considered the fact that whenever parents would allow their kids to probably skate there and stuff, we kind of wanted a place for the people guarding them as well, their guardians having a place to be able to watch them. So then, Jao, is it okay if you go back to the map, the first draw? Okay, so we wanted to kind of
Oh, what?
create like, okay, wait,
Yeah.
stop. We wanted to create like commercial spaces like somewhere around the area, you know, like this area, somewhere there. But then we haven't really established it yet. But then that's something that we want to do very soon. But then yeah, so that's essentially what we want to do for the space. I think that's it. Is there another slide?
Do you
Yeah,
still have the that under those small grain structures? Can we go to your perspective?
Which one, sir?
One of those isometrics with people with the massing.
Yeah.
Uh, maybe okay. So this is from the ground, no?
Yep.
Okay. So
yeah.
can we go to the next one? This is the one with the podium level. Tama ba? When I say podium, the one underneath they have a common ground. Is that correct?
Mm, which
Sorry.
podium?
I had a-
Sorry. Okay.
Sorry. This one, this is elevated, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So what happens underneath?
That's where the parking goes actually, because before we did
Okay,
want to have an
parking.
underground parking. So then elevating it provides the space as well as the views and the sense of privacy. Yeah.
Okay, that is fine. Okay, because if you just said you're just going to fill it with soil, it's not environmental friendly. It's too excessive.
Yeah.
So which is good because where will you get the soil? So you'll be destroying, another property by getting their soil, and then you're putting it here. So
Mm-hmm.
big carbon footprint, just like the Dolomites, sand. Anyway, um, this is already okay. I'm happy with this development. Do you have any ideas for the post office area?
For the post office area, we did want a market culture within the space that is kind of practiced now, like
Uh,
having the underpass for pedestrians. There are kind of little stalls that are by the community, like small ones that aren't necessarily permanent, but then we wanted to provide spaces for that kind of culture. And in front of the post office is the revised road network that we did and introduced last week, and we're still going to develop the structural frame of that road, and as well as the middle part that serves the view and the green space.
okay. All right. We don't have a lot of time. I hope that you find time to develop that area because this area is
Yeah.
already almost there. Uh, yeah, I have no further comments except um, for those areas because you guys can already finish majority of the areas that are supposed to be master planned. Okay. Sige. Thank you
Okay.
guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Uh,
Thank you.
Carlos and Andre.
Yes, sir. Andre? Yeah, I'm here. So yeah. So can you see my our screen, sir?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So yeah. Moving on naman from what we had last week. Last week we focused mainly on the residential area, that being the right side of the site. Pero this time we wanted to further improve also the left side, like near the post office, as well as yeah, kind of further detail na lang the residential area to give it more context on its life. So starting out, that's the left side of the site. Sorry, these are just overviews of the site in general. And all right, Andre, so yeah, do you want to present first, Andre? This is your slide.
Yeah, okay. So just to explain like how we made the other buildings and increase the density of the place because we wanted to fit in with the 70-30 efficiency ratio as much as possible. We try to specify the buildings a little bit more with its usage so that we can actually have purposeful planning. So we have a civic and commercial area over here just to functionally have a space that works with the former City Hall and the newer GSI building that we repurposed into an exhibit hall. Since we mentioned last week, we wanted to have a space to display the works of students and possibly other people or demographics. And also, we didn't really think about it as much before, but we wanted to incorporate the business and commercial area because we didn't really specify that anymore. So the area behind the GSIS building, we made it a space for that exactly. And then also near the residential area, we wanted to create commercial and recreational spaces. And over here, we just reverted back the idea to just make it utilities and recycling first because we want to just make sure that the entire layout is cohesive first and then implement specific ideas that work well with one another. And so for our ferry terminal, we actually wanted to integrate a hotel with it since we wanted to have a good tourism aspect to our site. So since we said that the ferry terminal is quite directly linked to the Intramuros site and other spaces, we believe that it was a good opportunity to include the hotel in the area so that they have instant access to all the places that they would like to explore. And yeah, we also wanted to create spaces for recycling because there aren't any really typologies out there for buildings that recycle. And I think it's something that should be a standard in newer cities. So it's something that we will look into more in possibly next art desk, or we'll see if there's possibilities to specify its functions more during this term.
Okay, and this one naman is on the left side of the site. So this is our post office building, or as we repurpose it to be the city hall. So we kind of give it like its own environment and area here, including like its own dock here to kind of integrate with the ferry terminal as well. That way to kind of further integrate it more into the existing transportation systems around the area, given that yeah, the specific location actually has quite a few access points, including bus stops and roads leading towards the area. So we really want to make use of that, especially the space around here in between our new city hall and the Metropolitan Theater. So when we were looking at it, parang it seemed a little dead, or like it wasn't being used to its full potential, other than for road networks and for the cars around it. So we wanted to make its own like space for people. Uh, so we turned it into like a kind of hawker center or like a food market to kind of activate the bus stops in the area and like really provide a use for the heavy foot traffic in the area. So like from here, you can also have like a really good view of the city hall and the surroundings around it, and you can kind of so from here like this is a underpass, I think, like entryway. You can kind of exit through here and instantly see yeah, the beauty of the area, as well as like kind of go around to the different places through like the underparts of the bridge. So we're kind of making use of that as kind of like gateways, and then to kind of further connect the areas around it, we'll have maybe like crosswalk systems, or basically we're just making it as user friendly as possible or pedestrian friendly. But sorry, and then it also further connects to this area here. This being more commercial space, more bus stops. This is the ferry terminal for the public access, and like a bus service station, which was already existent in the site. So we wanted that to be like the main location for buses to kind of be around. So that way, we're servicing a lot of the public transportation in the area and really strengthening its systems in the area. Yeah. And then Andre.
All right, so I forgot to mention, or I'm not sure if you have mentioned, but in terms of like the Burnham ideas, we actually thought about it this week and thought about how we wanted to incorporate it a lot more. And also with that, we also thought about what's sort of the DNA of our place, or what's a distinct aspect of our site compared to other cities. So originally, we wanted to focus on the low cost housing that would mimic sort of the Italian cities outside, but we wanted to contextualize it a lot more and see possibilities of how it could differ from areas like vegan or the areas in Italy. So we tried to evolve the Bahay Kubo, sorry, typology. And so next slide, I'll just show the process of like how we sort of imagine it. So yeah, this is just a super simple diagram of like how we wanted to evolve it. So the potential I saw in the Bayakubo is how they have an open space under that's quite semi-private and it's very inviting for other people. And so I thought in the context of social housing, wherein they are always proposing communal spaces. I thought it would be a good idea to have these open spaces connected to one another to sort of integrate it and to connect different neighborhoods and houses together. But we wanted to push the idea a little bit more. So next slide. So we recognize how there are families that are quite large, especially in the uh, lower lower classes. They are usually around like 6 or 7 people in one family. So that's something we should have considered. So we wanted to incorporate something that ties back to our history, which is the Bahay ng Bado mostly. And so this one incorporates 2 floors in it with no open space below. And yeah, it's sort of a way to have variety along these social houses. And yeah, so next slide. So this is sort of a cross section of how it works out, wherein there are shared common spaces for them that are open, and it allows them to communicate with other people within the site in a certain way. So yeah, and to increase the commercial spaces in the area, we wanted to use them as the platforms for these buildings. And since these buildings are elevated, we wanted to make these as views for recreational spaces that are found on the second floor. So with the idea of Burnham, we also wanted to incorporate his fifth idea somewhat into the plan, which is about the Baguio Plan, wherein Manila has a place to escape from summer and have a time to just relax and have different recreational spaces. So it's something we'll specify further in throughout the site wherein we have a lot more recreational spaces. And yeah, and in terms of the Bahay Kuba idea somewhat, we also wanted to probably push an idea for open air commercial spaces in some way, wherein it's not entirely enclosed, but it's just partially divided in some ways. And it could somewhat integrate the vendors a lot better in a new typology. It's still a very rough idea, but in terms of how we're going to develop this, we want to probably change how the center space between these two common spaces work so that the community for the outside, I mean, for the public use, there would be a shared space between the community and people visiting somewhat. Yeah. And there's just a couple more things I want to talk about. So, Carlos, can you go back to the isometric? The like the entire plan. Yeah. So we also wanted to develop green spaces along the riverfront, and we want to possibly develop the riverfront developments in line with the Burnham principle of romanticizing the Pasig River and utilizing it a lot more. So probably we'll develop a space here or a new typology perhaps if we can find a specific function for it to make the river a lot more unique. And yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. Okay. Just like the previous group, I think this part is already in the process of being finished already. But when it comes to the typology, it's too early for us to discuss it. Um, and I think there has to be enough time for us to discuss the kind of typology we are expecting for Design 6. But as for the master plan, I think it's becoming more developed and refined now. I'm just looking for like a strong idea behind the layout. I think you have a DNA of the morphology, but you cannot be too specific about that this early by specifying that it's going to be Bahay Kubo, etc. Otherwise, it will become um, a little thematic that in a way it becomes fake. Um, like the debate about the Akuzar because it's not authentically from it's not originally from that area. So the intention is very noble. It's very good, but uh, but the idea of authenticity, the authenticity criteria is questionable. The materials are authentic, but the context is not because they're like packed in one place. So it's the same thing with the Bahay Kubo idea that you are proposing as a DNA. We're not totally against it. Maybe it's a reinterpretation of the Bahay Kubo in a way that you are going to iterate it with a more modern approach, addressing the conditions, then probably incorporating issues of issues of open spaces because of the pandemic, things like that, but not necessarily copying it. Otherwise, you're not utilizing the studio as a laboratory. We're not very excited about styles because it relegates our profession into something very irrelevant. Um, if you want to do classical styles, there are schools for it. But for a design laboratory, it's a waste of time because for me, I mean, I'm a modernist because for me, if you want to copy styles, you can just get a book and a catalog and just copy it. There's no point discussing it. There's no point arguing about it because it's already proven. It's already there. So the purpose of a design laboratory is diminished. So what we're after for the moment you get to design six or the typology is creating your own typology, creating your own definition, jargon of design language, and but based on precedence. So you cannot just get it out of the vacuum. It will still be based on something, but for us to directly get it from by Kubo or the Parsons kind of architecture, it's kind of not doing justice to what design laboratories are supposed to be, which is ArcDes and and um, and then the kind of sessions that we have. Because what will I say? I mean, if you're going to propose a Kubo, it's beautiful. That's all I can say. It's tropical. That's all I can say. Do you get it? So there's really no intelligent argument about reviving styles, except that it's beautiful. Do you know what I mean? So, because it's been proven already, I'm not against it. It's just that the revival is a little, for me, a waste of time because it's been there, and my design studios has always been about exploration or exploring the unknown. So, but if you were referring to the Bahay Kubo in terms of the zoning and how you're utilizing for example, the spaces underneath, and then how you're interpreting it into a modern way, that it will become a public space, then it's another story, because that's the precedent. The Bahay Kubo is the precedent. But if you're just gonna copy everything, it it's a little for me it's a waste of time, although I might be assuming maybe that's what you intend to do, but I'm already explaining it as early as now just uh for the background of everyone so that they can avoid the same direction, and I hope that's clear, Andre.
I also just to clarify,
Yeah, okay.
I probably like said it in the wrong way, but I didn't mean to directly copy the Bahay Kubo or Bahay Naboto. It's more
uh,
of a precedent to show that
Good.
the residential areas we have are much more contextualized in a way to differentiate it from other places and cities that have like the same layout and idea. So the difference here is like showing how we have communal spaces under and also how it's a lot more porous because the difference I see between the Italian cities and how we can contextualize it is that the Italian cities are much colder, and it's much more open to the idea of having
Mhm.
uh, different blocks that doesn't really maximize the wind as much because of the temperature. So yeah, it's definitely gonna be iterated for the future. It's just suggested here how it's gonna
Yeah,
be
that's
different.
very good. I'm very happy to hear it. And yeah, Italian cities not during summer. Mainit din sa summer. So yeah, but yeah, it's very good that you clarify that, and I'm very happy to hear it. And you are in that context. You guys are in that context. So also another clarification. This is not just for your group, but for everyone. When I say big ideas for the office area, I'm not talking about introducing commercial development. I'm not referring to proposing retail F&B because it's not making the place any better because that area is meant the open space are meant to be to highlight the historical buildings, and the premise of that proposal of that requirement is because when, if I'm not mistaken, I think I read it in a Paulo Alcazaran article. People were actually against the flyovers, the bridge, the because it blocks the view of the post office building. That is our premise. So if you're going to put more commercial buildings, not just for your group, because I noticed the trend. Um, you know, uh, it defeats the purpose of that requirement. I mean, you're not really doing any better. Yeah, and then it's just that I thought I was gonna be understood when I was talking about big ideas like what sila Lance and Julian were proposing at first, but apparently there was a miscommunication on the part of the commercial aspect. So yeah, so I hope you can have other ideas aside from putting retail F&Bs, because that's not always the solution. All right. So, like, and now keep in mind and remember that the computation for the efficiency ratio, we exclude that area. So you don't need to be pressured putting commercial development in front of it. Okay. Oh, I forgot to mention the circular retail F&B of Silabea and Jao. Are you guys listening? Are you there? I actually like the idea, but I think it's better when it's more transparent on ground level, on human perspective, because if not, if it's just going to be just all walls, it will look like oil bunkers, like oil storage tanks. You know what I mean? It's good to be circular, uh, just those from the top, no, but reviewing it from the top. But if it's going to be on eye level, I think it will be beautiful if it's see-through glass so that you can see the landscape across. If it's a coffee shop, etc. Did you guys get it, Jao and
Yes,
Bea?
sir.
Yun.
Yep.
So, but it's a
Yes,
bit,
sir.
it's a beautiful idea incorporating uh, the saleable and non-saleable areas. But uh, for the post office building, you need to basically what we're requiring is uh, a landscape architecture idea. The maybe it was a mistake that I said that there should be commercial. I didn't say there should be, uh, but but we know. I think I acknowledge that um, local developments is always um, equivalent to introducing commercial development such as a coffee shop or something that people will be drawn to, that's because it's air conditioned, etc. But that's not our goal. But if that will help, how do you do that um, without impeding the view, without obstructing the view, and dignifying the historical buildings? Because the reason we're doing this, because we want to make the heritage buildings more prominent, because many Filipinos are not appreciative of it. You guys appreciate it because you guys are architects. You were educated to appreciate it. But try to imagine if it's highlighted in a way that it's dignified. The moment someone proposes to demolish it, people will be more aware, if not, if not supportive, because of the physicality that they produce for that area, because of physicality uh, that uh, that introduces the dignity of these buildings. You get it? So if we just say yes to commercial development, putting coffee shops there and McDonald's there, I don't know if that will help. Yeah. Okay. I hope that's clear, Andre and Carlos also. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So develop this area. I just want an idea for that part of post office, and then you're on your way to finishing this project. Okay. Okay. All right. But don't lose the idea of um, the ideas that you extracted from what do you call it? The Baikubo, the Bahay na Bato, using them as precedents. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sige. Thank you, Carlos and Andre. Uh, can we go to Janelle and sino ba ba? Janelle and Kirsten, and then Kier and Allison. Okay, game.
Okay. Hi, sir. Is it seen?
Yeah.
Okay. So, from last week, we focused on digitalizing all of the areas that we wanted to that we were talking about. So, this is our zoning. So, kept, we combined the area between the City Hall and the Met to make one large cultural and institutional area, since um, we wanted that we wanted there to be a direct view from the City Hall to the Met. Um, and then, so we also fixed our mixed use residential, commercial, and um, waterfront area. So the orange here and here and the ones here are our mixed use residential, commercial areas, while the yellow here in front is our um, mixed use commercial, residential, more like shop houses, while the orange is more apartment styles to cater towards the people in the government center and the schools. Yeah.
Oh yeah, can I add the process we use to get the layout of our major blocks is the same as what we did last week, wherein we extracted views and worked from there. And then other than that, we created our massing for our multimodal transportation areas, which are the ones in brown. Um, so we have one in each corner to accommodate the major roads. And since these are only vehicle roads that are accessible to vehicles. And then um, so far we haven't yet our only missing area for this week is the area between the mosque and our agricultural area, because We're still figuring out how to align it with the Mecca, and um, we're still researching on the um, like the geometry and the formation of mosque so that it aligns better to both the Golden Mosque and the mosque in our vicinity. But
Um,
yeah, mostly we just modeled what we had last week. But then we also had other urban ideas that we generated.
so, one of the urban ideas that we generate was the addition of esteros to help with the irrigation of certain areas, specifically the larger green areas. So, one of the areas is here around the around the Araceros Park, and our proposed part of our proposed wetland area, and then another is around the post office, and which we will further explain later, and um here the along Intermuros to help with the irrigation of um the Intermuros green space, which we will
We'll be
expound.
using,
Yeah.
yeah.
So in our previous proposal, we proposed uh what do you call it, Janelle? The GSIS one.
Um, Wait, sorry. Previously we proposed like a social club or like a
Oh yeah,
town like gathering space for the adaptive reuse.
reuse of
But
the
then,
GSIS.
yeah, from planning this week, we decided to switch this adaptive reuse with the adaptive reuse of the post office, wherein we initially planned to make some like a more modern take on um the essence of a post office, which is more centered towards uh, media and publication. So we switched the programs essentially, and so for the post office, if ideally we were if we were to turn it into more of a like social club town gathering hall type, um, we thought it provided like a bigger impact towards the community as a whole. So the essence of having the Esteros around it is to um, create that sort of sense of place for that particular um, land use. And since now the area in front of it, the open space in front of it is used um, or like being disturbed by vehicular circulation. We wanted to remove that aspect from like disassociate it from the post office. So we have plans on um, bringing the flyover to land the National Granite, but we'll be explaining that later on with our
Of their sheets.
when you yeah our other sheets. But yeah, essentially that's the idea, and then create a more like an open space that is predominantly for pedestrian and just uh, for that's more people centric.
So just to add, like another reason that we switched the social club to the post office was we felt that we could also include social activities that surrounded the riverfront and the estero that we would be making in relation to the social club, while the adaptive reuse of the new forms of media could be better suited to near to the schools and the government center. So yeah. So this is a zoomed in view of our cultural center, and So this is the cultural center, which we um, sort of we made into a larger um, park with larger open areas so that there would be more activity, like space for activity within the school, and um, this area being um,
Workshop.
oh yeah, there workshops for cultural activities, while this yellow will be sort of like shop houses and riverfront um, restaurants that
Restaurant.
are, yeah, restaurants that because we wanted to bring the focus to the river as well. And
Oh, our this part that we're still trying to develop, which is currently empty right now, but the main idea behind this area is to centralize the our public housing towards this waterfront that we're planning to have in front of the mosque. So as to accommodate like more health and wellness related activities. And then we're also planning to have programs and buildings based on religious events, which we said last week also, but we're still trying to um, lay out properly to face the Golden Mosque. So that's what we're planning to fix for next week. Okay, next.
okay, so for
Wait, the
this
other one
one,
first. The other one.
okay,
Okay.
okay, there. So for this area, we wanted to focus on the area in between the city hall and the intramuros, so the green area there. So we wanted to, like, with the idea of Burnham and views, and since we started with that concept, we wanted to further it and how we could further pedestrianize the area and connect Intramuros to the City Hall area. So we thought of turning Taft and the other streets um, between the City Hall and Intramuros into an underpass. So the street, the direction of the streets and the location of the street won't necessarily change, but it will just slope down, allowing for us to use the space on the ground level as pedestrian, like pedestrian friendly areas. So in doing so, it opens up the area to it removes the disruption of the traffic, and it sort of allows the focus from all areas to be the major heritage buildings.
What's the brown again? I'm sorry.
Sir,
The streets that we're moving,
Underground.
that we're seeing, yeah.
yes, sir.
Ah,
It's
okay.
gonna
Yeah,
underpass.
that's nice. Okay.
Yeah.
The
So it's
other
like
street.
what do you call that? Those animals they're allowing to cross. So we are like the animals now.
Yeah, it
No,
was also a
really.
response to it's also a response to I think Sir Jerry mentioned in one of our lectures
Yeah.
to yeah, access, like provide access to Intramuros and create like some sort of value for the Intramuros greens that are currently like neglected.
Okay,
So we have
thank
a
Because
you.
proposal for that.
yes, because if you notice it also, like there's such a large distance per street. So what happens is it really separates the two areas, but we wanted to find a way to connect it better. So this is our proposal.
Yeah.
So if you look at the section here,
Are those houses or cars?
the one under
Cars,
is cars.
sorry. Yeah, cars.
Hello,
Um,
hi.
we followed the like the location of where the streets currently are, and then we just moved it one like level lower. So those
Yeah.
are where the cars are located, and the greens of Intermuros we slope them downwards to accommodate other potential activities and enhance the saleability of the
The
the the area, even if
So
it's
yeah,
green.
yeah. So the concept we were thinking of is the concept of stepwell. So we would um create areas and spaces for small stores or bundles of activity throughout the slope of the intermurus greens. Um, and then in connection to the Estera idea that we previously had, um, it would also it would also allow for a natural irrigation of the Estero going down the greens.
Yeah.
And then we were also thinking um if we enhance this idea further, we could also apply it to um our Pasig River area, wherein it's sort of similar, wherein our wetlands for agriculture and the Araceres area slope downwards to the river, and hence our we plan for our bridge, our pedestrian bridges in between to sort of have the same function as what we previously mentioned. So also to create like a more cohesive like a city concept. And yeah,
And then we would also incorporate it to here the post office area. So since this is currently the underpass and the area we will be sinking is from around here to here, the underpass can slope up towards the post office so that when you're coming out from the underpass, the main focus will really be um, the post office.
Okay.
also regarding the flyovers, because of our underpass idea, we thought about um like I said a while ago, like bringing down the flyovers to ground level as to not disrupt the views from the post office to its like relative heritage buildings.
Yeah. So since we know that the flyovers are located along these areas, by moving them to ground level, like Janelle said, it would clear up the entire view and really allow us to highlight the heritage buildings.
Yeah.
That's
So
all, sir.
so if ever sila Lance and Julian will be working on the positive, they are elevating. You guys are sinking, right? So yeah, I think I love that. This is what I was talking about, guys. When it comes to the proposal for the open spaces near Intramuros and post office, this is somewhat applying the Burnham idea as well, like making big plans. But of course, excuse me, toning it down a little bit when we get to the river, because the river is it's a body of water. It's very difficult to manage that. Um, so how's your sinking of the land for the highway, the Burgos Road area, related to the esteros?
Our plan was to, since well actually we were thinking about it because one of Burnham's um like mentions during
The mode
um his plan, yeah, was the moat and like getting rid of it. But we were analyzing that like that,
situation.
yeah, that situation, and we were thinking about how he mentioned it solely because it was unmaintained and it was stagnant. As per what an estero is essentially is, it's more free flowing, and um so we incorporated that into the sloping of the intramuros greens and having it sort of create a like a I wouldn't say beautification, but even if you're underground in the underpass,
You need
the
to
cars would experience um
you need,
the flow of the estero, but also it serves as maintenance for the greens that will be um that we're still planning to cultivate
Utilize.
within that
Yeah.
area.
okay, you need to study that further because I'm not sure which one will be lower, the stepping down or the stero. I think it might be challenging for you to connect the different levels, the level of that estero, if it's going to be lower, especially if you're connecting it with the Pasig River, which has a certain height. So I don't know. That is very unclear to me. So which one is lower? So how do you maintain that flow if one area is higher than the other? Do you get it? So I'm not totally against the idea, just 70%. But the sinking idea is beautiful. I love that. That's the kind of ideas we're looking for. Um, I think it's if the government is going to spend on curating the country so that we can save our buildings, the physical manifestations of our identity and history. I think that's worth it. Do you get it? So at least that's why I'm looking for big ideas, not just ideas that a non-architect can think of, putting commercial developments. So but I'm not totally against this Tero idea, but maybe just 80%. But I like the idea that you're incorporating water. You know why? Because Burnham was very specific about
Yes,
water
sir.
because it's very hot. Which brings me, how come nobody has proposed fountains, like water fountains? Nobody. Yeah, I mean, it's very. Burnham actually proposed that idea because it cools the environment. That's why when you go to Santa Cruz, it has that fountain. I don't know if it's the WASA or MWS's fountain. We have
Sir, meron kami
lots.
isa.
Meron ka ba? Max, saan doon?
Sa harap ng ano, sir, buong harap ng post office, sir.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Eh kasi naman, meron ng fountain talaga doon. Kaya parang luma.
Hindi, tinanggal namin, so pinahaba namin. Para siyang mukhang lap pool, ganun.
Ah, okay. Eh, ganun pa din yun. Big plan.
O sige,
Okay,
isipan
so,
pa namin, sir.
uh, in a way, it's your landscape architecture exercise. Eh. So, I wanted guys to enjoy that part. Don't, kasi you're thinking of it, maybe because you're scared of me, but you think of it as a more of a task rather than enjoyment of, what can be done for this. Like, I want it to be more imaginative. Of course, the planning aspect's another thing. My study is always about balancing the creative and what's not doable or what's not practical. So don't limit yourself when it comes to the post office ideas. But of course, for the planning side, I have something to clear about that as well later on. But when it comes to that, it has to be a bit of reality and imagination. But when it comes to the idea of the overall idea of the landscape architecture, or even the idea of how you're going to master plan the entire development, you can be more imaginative. For example, if you're thinking about pools and water fountains, what if that idea is your idea up to the typology development in design 6? Like you're talking about a city about water. Do you get it? Um, like if you create those holes, then one of those holes will be not just about seeing the vehicles underneath, but probably one of those random holes is a pool. I don't know. I'm not sure how we can manage public pools. Maybe it's just a fountain, or maybe it's a private pool. Maybe Fullerton Hotel, one of those pools is managed by a hotel that's not accessible to anyone. But when you look at the landscape, it's part of the landscape. one of those holes. You know what I mean? I'll provide another example of that later on once we're offline. So, but one of the things that I want to clarify about development, while again, I'm very happy that you are Benilian by heart, that you are very empathic, that you are inclusive, etc. But I want you guys to also consider reality. Um, it's very easy to say that we are intending this development, kunyari, this housing for the government employees or to the needy. But keep in mind that developments like this cost a lot of money. That is why it's targeted to the ones who have money. Let's be honest. I'm all for inclusivity and providing housing, but this might not be the arc for that. You know why? Because if we do that, your design six will be about costing. If you really want to cater for the low income, then the development of your typology will include costs. So how do you become creative with just using plywood, with just using the basic sizes of windows? Because if you oversize it, it's not low cost anymore. So I think that exercise is good for another artist, but not for this kind of project. That is and if, for example, you intend this housing for the workers of Manila City Hall, you need to research how much they're earning, what's the average income, and how much is a condominium. Okay, and then you provide the cost. I'm sure you are already familiar with how much the condominium costs in the Philippines, in Manila, for instance. There's no 3 million studio anymore. Meron pa ba na 3 million? Wala na, di ba? So do you think a government employee can afford a development that is like Rockwell? Do you get it? It's gonna be very difficult. So nagkakaroon siya ng um, incompatibility. Well, the intention is very, very good. It's very easy to say na ganun. Pero we're talking about cost of development uh, and the capacity of your intended users to pay. That is also the reason why our housing is also lacking, because our housing needs to be subsidized by the government. But this area, um, I think it's not for that kind of development because we have so much cultural developments happening around. So yeah, and then just like it's good that what's happening in Escolta is happening recently. I don't know what's happening now because of the pandemic. But when I was studying, Rockwell Center was becoming popular, and in my head, how come the developers are not just how come they just pick an empty land and develop it? Why not pick our historical districts and then revive it and then invest their money in it? And that's more long term. But of course they have their reasons. So yeah, so it's the same case with this one. If you have cultural um, cultural buildings around you that you want to be proud of, that you want to be world class, um, I'm not sure if low cost housing will be a good accompaniment in terms of context, because uh, maybe it can be, but again, it will be a bloody, intricate process because you will need to think of the costing, which I think we can discuss in another design subject. They get on how you can be creative by using just the simplest, modest materials. Yun. So again, it's not about the intention, but it's about balancing what is doable and what is not. And then when you're practicing, and probably when you're working in a big company that does this kind of development, you can address those things. But keep in mind, the moment you address those things, these are the variables that you have to work with. Okay, so uh, like that. Anything else? Do you have any questions, guys?
No, sir.
Okay.
And
Sige, I'm excited to see how this goes. We're on the almost last stretch, and I hope you're able to finish this. But the idea looks promising. I like the shop houses promenade, and what's nice about it is that it leads. You have two anchor points: the Metropolitan Theater, and then I don't know what that brown building is on the other side. What's that?
Sir, so this one is our transport. So, because we closed off all the streets inside to pedestrianization, so this is the only access road.
Yeah. I don't know. You can Google Tokyo Central Station. It's a nice heritage building. But of course, for this one, it's not going to be heritage. It can be a modern building. But my point for that is that it's an imposing heritage building, almost iconic. Uh, Even it's being dwarfed by a lot of glossy skyscrapers. It's in the Marunouchi district, so it's a very high end district, glossy. But because it's heritage, it's iconic. It stands out, even if it's being dwarfed by those buildings. But in this case, how they create a building that is made and designed for our time, that is sort of very memorable, that it becomes an anchor point. Of course, it can have commercial areas in in the in the inside the building, but it's an imposing building as a terminus of that shop house. I think it's a very good idea, very solid idea. Although now that I'm noticing the mangrove area, you need to rethink on how you can balance the efficiency, etc. But other than that, I think it's not so far from being finished. Okay, so although I don't know how you're going to develop. So I guess this area with the roads will still change, no? Because of that idea of the slope, the sinking sunken gardens.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Sige. Okay, thank you guys.
Sir, just a question. For
Yeah.
the saleability, like you were saying, since we're building the wetlands, if ever, on the river, it's not considered under the saleability anymore, right, sir? Since this area
Okay.
is on
Andi
the
ba?
river.
If it's on the
No.
river, yeah, I guess it's okay. But
Okay.
try to study lang the access of the boats. You might be obstructing them. So I'm not against it, just 20%. So but think of the accessibility lang of the boats.
Okay, sir.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Tracy and Kevin.
Elfie,
Oh, just bear with me. I'm not on the same computer. Sorry.
oh, shoot. Sige,
I
ako na
can.
lang. Ako na lang, Gab.
Sir, sorry kung mag-choppy yung
Um,
audio. It's been raining.
medyo yung Wi-Fi ko, sir.
It's raining there. It's not raining here yet.
It's actually been raining here the whole week. Tumitigil for some reason.
Ortigas area ka, di ba?
I'm sure.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Hindi mo maulan na. Alam, malapit lang ng Ortigas
Hindi
dito.
hindi naman malakas, sir. Yung ambon tapos yung lalakas.
Okay.
And it's been affecting my Wi-Fi. So yeah.
Can you see?
Yeah.
Ang init ng rendering nyo, it feels like it's a city in Mars.
May may sun coloring ata so hindi namin natanggal.
Parang nasa Mars yan.
Actually, sponsor ni Javi yung project namin.
Elon Musk. Okay,
Siya
game.
yung third member.
Yeah, so we'll try to make this as fast as possible since pagod ka. But this is where we left off last week. We weren't finished with the model last week, so considering your critiques on other students and where we were at when we were modeling this, we decided to take a step back and redesign the development in general. Yeah, and to be able to inject innovations then and integrate the innovations to the different areas. Yeah, so sir, what we're gonna show you is like a general, yeah, our agenda for this week was to make a general master plan that we could work with, and then hopefully if
Sir developed.
yeah,
for
hopefully
future development.
if we get this approved, we could start detailing and micro designing after.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Um, I
Ano
just
naman
want to
yan
add
last week, di ba?
sir.
yes, sir, last week. So,
Yeah.
the thing we noticed, I also when Kevin and I talked, is hard to distinguish what's the difference between um, the two cultures, or like of the upper and lower Pasig rivers. So we tried to explore on how we could make it more distinguishable and memorable for the people who's gonna live here and who's gonna visit.
Yeah.
So this is our
Um,
current plan.
yeah.
Okay.
So so the biggest leap we took in this iteration was actually connected to sila Janelle and Lance. But for us, um, we attempted on already modeling it. So yung underground Taft Avenue that will rise to the different bridges. That's what you're seeing as a major change in the Taft area. And then yeah, we'll go through different perspectives of the other areas
Mm-hmm.
as we go on. Yeah.
Right.
So, sir, this is the general, how do you say this, like districts or areas of the master plan we have. Yeah. Sir, kita ba? I can read it out if.
Okay, very good. You have zoning. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Kita.
So, can I read it out, sir? Or
No na, no na.
okay, sige.
Nabasa ko na lahat.
Okay, sige. So next, Tracy.
But unless you have a logic behind, you have a rationale. Love to
Sir,
hear.
if yung pinaka rational namin here was we still use that same matrix we did from 2 weeks ago when we were sketching to be able to connect even the building, even the programs of the buildings that you'll see in the next slide. And then ito yung nabuo niyang zoning
Okay.
from last time. Yeah. Next, Trace. Ay, next.
This is circulation.
Is the excuse me, the rendering in the beginning, the top view the same?
The rendering in the
The-
beginning. No, sir. That was yung beginning was our last week.
I knew it.
So
Yeah, okay.
this is the one we have right now.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Kaya kita niyo na yung covered green space sa may top.
Yeah.
And then I'll get to the underpass later. Can you go to the building zoning, Trace?
Oh,
Yeah, there.
Okay.
So, yung may legend.
Oh, sorry. Here.
It's fine. It's fine. No, not the circulation. The building zoning. Yeah.
Here.
Sorry. Yeah. These are the programs that we were fixing in the design. Generally, it's all the same programs from last time. We'll get through them later once we look at the perspectives. And then, can you go to the circulation, Trace? Sorry, did you want to say anything?
Oh, no. I'll add later on.
Yung circulation, yeah. Sorry, naglalag lang. Pero rinig ako. Rinig ba ako?
Can be heard.
Okay. Yeah, so sir, sorry. Hindi ko nalagyan ng arrow lahat. But yeah, yung blue lines, sir, those are ground level circulation, including the bridges. Yung purple, those are the points that from going underground to rising back up to the natural ground line. They're color coded differently yung TAF because those are actually two different levels. We followed the same circulation on TAF that we've been proposing in our sketches, but that only worked because only one was underground and then the other was overground. So it would be fine if they were intersecting because they're on different levels. But one problem we had here was if they're both underground, then our plan would only work if they're also both on different levels. But then we kept them as is, but underground. So yung purple or violet, the violet line is goes down 14 meters or yeah, 12 meters, 12 meters. Um, yung yellow or orange line goes down 6 meters. Dami numbers. Bakit ganun? Kasi yung yellow one, well, the the minimum height for a tunnel is 4.8 meters considering maximum truck height. So ginawa namin is ginawa lang namin 5 meters. But we made it, not mistaken if it's 6 or 7, but we added 1 to 2 meters for the ground width, ground thickness based on bridges. Kaya naging 6 or 7 meters below. And then, yung purple, dami numbers. Yung purple, 12 or 14 meters below. So that's lower than the 6 meters. And then it follows a 1:15, a 15% slope based on our research. And then, yeah. So for a 15% slope, ang length na kailangan is 90 meters. So if 90 meters to reach 6 or 7 meters below the ground level. So naging 180 if you're gonna go 14. Kaya nag-iiba. Kaya separated sila. Anyway, yes.
Add some.
Yeah.
Right
So,
here, if you look
sige.
close, might annotate. If you see, this right here, well, it has evolved. I would like to say that it has evolved instead of letting the cars pass in the center and making them the drivers to view be framed by the vista. Instead, well, not letting the driver see it right away, only at this point if you enter. But we're prioritizing that view more for the pedestrians. So we moved in the this buildings in the center. This becomes very important. Our Kevin and I decided that this um, old city hall, well, it's old and there's a lot of problems. Just Kev visiting it, the interior, it takes a lot to remodel. So we thought of, okay, the best way we approach this is similar to other groups is how because it's adjacent to the, well, a complex down here which we can watch, and something that is very historical. It makes sense that we would introduce a hotel because there's not much hotels in this area, especially what's existing here because it's educational. So we made this a hotel, and then this becomes a an entire new civic complex, which I'll be showing you later.
Trace, before you go next. So I remember you asking the other pair, sir, if what about the streets? I think sila generally, yung streets coming from Intramuros. Those also begin to slope down 6 meters and part pa rin siya ng computation. Pero we weren't, we based on our research, it's a one-way thing. So they were going towards Taft, and then at a certain point on our computation, bababa rin siya ng the 6 meters, following the 15% slope pa rin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. On to the
Um,
perspectives.
sorry.
And
Sorry. Dun sa underpass, sir, yung setback from the Pasig River that we used is 50 meters. Our research was saying 20 to 50 meters, but we wanted to go for 50 meters at max. just in case anything below that is wrong information. But yeah,
Wait, 50 meters clearance for what?
for you mentioned kasi last one of our consultations, sir, na bawal mag-underground at a certain point from the river.
That's my issue with the, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
It's better that way than being directly
Yeah.
near. So Lance, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Nakausap ko na si Lance about it, sir, na pag-usapan na namin.
Okay.
Yun nga, sir, we followed the 50 meters and then pasok pa rin siya. Actually, halos 100 meters before the Pasig River pa nga siya. Nakaakyat na. And then,
Alright.
ayun, next, Trace.
So this one is just the overview of what we have. It's very similar from what we developed before from all our items. It's just we
Yeah.
tried to find a way, make it distinguishable in terms of cultures around. And in here is the complex, is the overview. What you have is um I was talking to Kev about like, okay, what are we gonna use the green space? It's still on development, but what if we allow kalesas and bikes? So the culture doesn't become limited to very tight streets like intramuros. You allow bike cultures and then maybe introduce like um well other cultures such as skating or whatnot. Um and of course or one of our very first possible iterations then was the LRT underside market. So there is a reason for people, like if you're coming from a hotel or civic complex, there's different choices, different atmospheres. You could immerse yourself in well local crafts or whatever the range. It's a little bit cheaper, of course, with the LRT underside market is because under the LRT, it's kind of noisy, but it still creates a culture. And of course, the hawkers, many people would want to eat, and some other parts of the community that we added here. Of course, it's not the only place where you could eat. It's just introducing a different culture because adjacent to it is PNU and some other universities and even dormitories. And with the red and blue is the business. Of course, there's a Muslim community giving homage to the well the current development, and of course the new central station, which is based on the
Uh,
discussed, right?
yeah, can I add lang? Sorry. Sir, yung nakikita niyong line sa may Taft, sa may garden boundary, nagkamali lang ako, hindi lang namin natanggal yan. I think we accidentally extruded it, but that's all green. Yeah, I think.
Oh no,
Which one are
actually
you
no,
referring to?
I
yes.
extruded it. I extruded it because
Oh.
that's the golf course area. So just to know how much green
Okay.
space is available for the
Sorry.
public.
sorry. Akin. Pero, sorry sir, user error. Um, yung new central station, sir, me and Tracy were talking na, will they have to cross the street to get there? Like, isn't that kind of dangerous? There's an underpass, overpass happening there. So we were like, we are, since general master plan now, we plan on like modeling a bridge or a bridge that would directly from the Aroseros side or Pilega Street that would directly lead them to the central station, like a footbridge or um, a bridge over the underpass in front of the Metropolitan Theater para magamit rin ng pedestrians yung area in front of it as related to the Metropolitan Theater.
Yeah.
But
Alright.
yeah.
Okay, so you see this funny looking spiral thing. It kind of reminds me of, okay, how can you enjoy the view? Because, well, it's a different experience below ground, and I remember seeing these view decks in New York, and I was wondering why don't we have one and situated in a point wherein you could view um, something that's not usual in our own ground eye level view, and um, introduce that kind of existing typology. So this is how it would look like if you're up about 28 meters up there. It doesn't go higher than the city hall, but it frames it. It frames a lot of the parts of the city, but this is one of it. So imagine now, because put trees on top, of course, it's gonna be full of in the in the landscape. You won't be able to see the as much as we want to show in renders, like how it frames. You won't be able to appreciate it as much as like in a higher level. You'd see more details that normally you don't see from below ground, and this kind of makes it, because it's a touristic area. If you go to if you went to Intramuros, and the fact that we cannot even enjoy the walls of Intramuros from outside because of the golf complex, this is how we could kind of compensate that and still give some sort of user experience. And
Yeah.
that's not only the views, of course, of this Manila City Hall, but this is an important framing. It
Yeah.
shows even the other side of the Muslim community and other parks.
Yeah.
So it kind of,
Tracy, I
yeah.
wanted to say something now. So yung Bonifacio Shrine, we haven't detailed it yet because our goal was for a general master plan, but we plan on elevating it. We haven't talked about a certain height yet, but we plan on elevating it because the green space on the left, the current Heroes Park is heavy with trees, and we plan on keeping those trees or relocating them if necessary around the area. But yeah, we plan on elevating the Bonifacio, the Katipunan, Bonifacio and the Katipunan Monument, the shrine, uh, so that even the people on the side of the new City Hall complex would see it. Kasi nangyayari ngayon is since there's so many trees on the Heroes Park, you only see the park, and then um, you have to look at it at a certain, like, for a certain time, just to be like, oh, there's a shrine over there, let me go through the park. So again, it's just something that we'll look into for next week.
And I guess one thing to add is if you notice that since the almost the near beginning, like Kevin and I was questioning, like, should we try something kind of bright, move the LRT to the side? But then consequentially, like what Kev said, is that the Bonifacio shrine is being hidden away. But in a way, it kind of helps with the circulation. And for those riding the LRT, one of the things that I do enjoy also is
Same.
when I to seeing these buildings, like when you're in Taft area sa DLSU, diba? You could see the old facade that is still kind of neoclassical. So just thinking about it, instead of um seeing it as an obstruction, becomes of this entourage for people who's passing through this complex. In contrast, if we kept it to the original line along the left side along Heroes Park, which is heavily dense in terms of trees and really bad circulation in the start. So that's their
Yes.
solution.
Sir, it also we also consequently notice na there's opportunity for shade now if there's like pedestrian circulation along that area. So we were like, maybe we could work on that for next week. Yeah.
Yes. And then, just jumping on the other side, giving just context, that's
Yeah.
the city hall. The reason of this really long, it kind of looks like an X if you remember in the plan,
Yeah.
is because it's framed the Grand Mosque to the mosque, smaller than the Grand Mosque, but it has a really wide open space with a kind of a park towards walkers. So pag gutom ka, kumain ka dyan, just walk straight down, you actually see it. and from a certain view, although this is not the level of walking, at some point you will be able to see the view of the Seoul and other places. So this is a
Uh,
little bit more dissecting further and further, going in what is happening in this yes. And yeah, Kev, go ahead, add.
can you go back now? I forgot to say something.
Go
Um,
down.
is it changed na? Kasi baka naglalagaw. Ayun. Yung hawkers, why did we want to frame the hawkers towards the other side? Because we were like, kung since street food area ang hawkers, maraming tao. Like it's gonna be a really dense area given it's near educational, business, commercial, civic programs. So we were like, anong gusto mong kainin? Anong gusto mong gawin after mo kumain? Usually, um, either tatambe ka somewhere which is around the area, and you would go out of the hawkers and then you would be like, wow, there's a landmark straight over there.
Yeah, it's kind of crowd
Yeah.
version. Really.
Yeah, yeah. And then in terms of the walkability naman, well, wala tong scientific basis, no? Pero I hear a lot of people wanting to walk after they eat, just to make everything flow down and um, yeah, to avoid the parang malamyang feeling. Ano yun?
Baka ikaw lang yan.
Baka nga ako lang. No? So,
Ako,
pero narinig mo ba yun? Yung parang may mga gusto
Ikaw
talaga
lang. Ikaw lang yun. Ikaw lang yung vein dito eh.
Ay, sorry.
Baka-
Sorry.
baka sir, ikaw naman ang
Okay.
Again,
joke.
Don't quote me on that. Anyway, go lang.
Okay, sige. The thing lang there, Kev, you could want to explain the bridges, how it connects. Since you worked on that.
Sure, did you include another shot for the bridge or is this it?
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, my
It's fine. So for the bridge, so yung pedestrian bridge, we made it go diagonal, and that's
change
actually
Muslim market to bazaar. I think it's more appropriate.
yeah, bazaar.
Muslim
Sige.
mark. Okay, sige. So sure, for the pedestrian, yeah, for the bridges actually in the underpass, we wanted to fabricate them, even just a general idea of it, just so we could get the measurements done. And that making the pedestrian bridge actually had us change almost everything. Because if they were just perpendicular, if the bridges started perpendicular to each other, the Pasig River is only 100, like based on the model, it's like 100 meters wide. And for following a slope of 1:12, tapos may minimum, daming math, may minimum height yung bridge, which is 7 meters from the water line to allow the necessary bridges. Pero hindi naman 7 meters high lahat ng bridges, just to allow maximum height. So that's why we made it diagonal, and then we also designed it na lang to frame yun nga, the mosque, and another one to frame the agricultural area in Arroceros, para to gain more length. And then ayun, naging feasible siya following the slope.
And also just to add, if you notice here, it's following one of Burnham principles besides the vistas. I mean, it also follows kind of reduced, like another rendition of the what do you call that, the central planning of the circular plan, the radial, yeah, the planning. So it's kind of a semi-radial planning that is focused on the mosque and the community in that side, in the upper Pasig, because even in if you go back to history, or generally in what town planning is, when they kind of hug the landmarks that really influences the area, and that's how we kind of considered both the context of Burnham and the culture of our Muslim brothers and sisters.
Yeah. There's others that we'll get into later. But yeah.
This is just kind of how we frame it, and then framing if you actually stayed in
In the
the
hotel.
hotel, the Riverside. So it allowed you have these views right away. Like, why? How would you make them walk? And in contrast to the city hall, you already have the beautiful garden space. You're so near the museums, and like that seems like why would I stay in a hotel that's further down across the bank?
Yeah.
And these opportunities perspective, even the right side, there's already a market na like a general market wherein we Kevin and I plan to have like, oh, what if there's a night market on the right side?
Yeah.
And
Can I add them?
a lot of light
Sorry.
for the tourist area. Oh,
Um, yeah, so now you're seeing the pedestrian bridge more.
yeah, should, yeah.
Yung slab, yung floor thickness niya, it's color coded green because yung based from our last iterations, we wanted to make that green space rin sa bridge to connect um, both green spaces along the rivers. That slab thickness also already, the floor thickness already considers um, yung soil depth, if ever, ng puno. If there's like a small tree. Kasi actually based siya on kakao research ko ng ArcDes 3, sir. Kasi yung deep roots kasi yun. So it has like one of the deepest roots. So ang kailangan niya is 1.7 meters. So yung ginawa namin is we followed that, and then we also put shade over it since it's a bridge. Wala pa siyang structural sir, general idea pa. But yeah. Sige lang.
Alright. Did I miss anything? Yeah, that's fine. The last part is kind of the last stretch where we want to develop and some concepts on how we could fabricate it on top of our current development. So as we discussed a while ago is how we could kind of play around with the spaces because the spans in between the LRT, just imagine how sayang siya. It's about 25 to almost 30 meters of span. And looking at that as an opportunity to develop, especially for those perhaps maybe not as high end as the other areas, because we saw it as getting a little bit more leeway for those who cannot afford in those high end spaces there, the underside. And then there's the future development of the park. And oh yeah, so this was one of the initial idea I've been telling you, but it was crunch time, so it was hard it was hard to implement right away. So I just drove over what the plan we have so far is what, because I remember this question like Jim, you kept on saying, oh, so if we're gonna hills, we're gonna basically um you have to cut down another mountain, and what if we just use what's in the area using like the 40-meter setback of um of land and take land from the upper side back and make small hills to change the landscape of that area. So for kind of giving chance for the people who couldn't even go to the golf side to see a little bit more also of that international wall. So it's
So
like
are you
the
still
very
maintaining the golf side, the golfing area?
Yeah. I
we
think
were we
sorry.
were allowed to, but could assume we're just assuming because it generates a lot of income. I mean that's
Yeah, sir.
a lot of
We also wanted to ask that actually, like Kasi you mentioned na hindi naman namin daw gagalawin yung golf course. So,
Kinalaw na nila Kier tsaka ni Janil.
so
what
pwede.
happened? Oh.
Okay. Kasi yun yung una yung sinabi. So, kaya, but
No,
yeah.
I
Yeah,
think,
we
did they say that? Maybe the Intramuros. Yun ang untouchable talaga.
Okay. Sorry. Pero you mentioned it, sir, pero parang namamadali ka na ata nun. So
Maybe, yeah.
So,
Okay.
but yeah, if we can look into it for future.
yeah. But yeah, that's basic I explained. Like, instead of killing off a mountain, which I personally I do not want to do.
Yeah.
Take advantage with the small volume that we could excavate on the other side and then put it in the
Yeah. But we have to develop it further. But,
what else did I miss? Yeah, that's it, sir.
Let me check.
I guess
sir,
the
yeah.
last
So, yung estero from last time is still there.
I don't see it. Where is it?
the
Yung
right side.
estero yung sa may civic area trace.
Yeah, I'll get the view. There, it's there. I guess yeah, there.
Yeah,
Because this is this is kind of the agricultural complex that we want to introduce, and then there's the new civic area.
Do you still
Extended
have
civic space.
the estero there?
No, sir. That was the one we were proposing last week.
Okay. I'm a
Yeah,
little
Yeah,
iffy
the
about it, but I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know yet because connecting it to the river as it is, our existing esteros are dead. So
Yeah.
I'm not so
If I
sure
may-
about it.
oh,
I may answer.
Yeah.
When we were, it's definitely something we have to develop further, considering the flow and the height of the Pasig River. But we were also taking note that the river flows from Laguna de Bay to Manila Bay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's about.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Jericho supports Ramon Ang's proposal. You saw his post,
Ano to, sir?
yung flyover,
Oo.
yung highway over the river.
Hindi yata yun sa
Pero wala akong sinasabi dyan. Share ko lang.
Akala ko sinusuportahan mo, di ko binasa yung text mo eh.
Sir, I said we're doomed.
Ayun ba sinabi mo?
Ah, sir.
Ang basa ko cool eh.
Hindi. Kung ganun, sir, bagsak na ako ngayon.
Okay, sige, ano pa? Kevin.
Lastly, sorry.
yung
We don't have shots
Ikaw
from
muna,
the
Hev.
center, but it's we were inspired by the other side and Venice and Amsterdam, like how they do it with a pedestrian type. But yeah.
And
Okay.
to resolve lang yung we mentioned this in passing, but my Wi-Fi was so bad last. We were thinking about floating wetlands. It's kind of small versions of wetlands instead of encompassing the entire area, because some plants that are used for wetlands can kind of become very parasitic to the water, like what's happening currently sa Pasig. Iniwan lang yung water hyacinths, even though it kind of helps in cleaning up. There's actually a technology wherein it's
Drawing mo
only
na.
things a limited area, parang small pot, parang pinapot mo yung plant.
May grid,
and then,
may grid arrangement siya, sir. It holds them in place.
mhm. And that's how we imagined how we're cleaning. Plus, I forgot what phytoremediation, because this is a garden space. Phytoremediation is basically when you plant trees or certain plants that cleans the soil, because that's where the water passes, right? It will naturally cleanse itself. So adding those two methods of cleaning, we kind of show that it is possible in a very small scale to clean up a small Pasig River, and symbolizing that, like, what if only we had, the discipline and resources, we expand that to the rest of Pasig. So it's kind of using it as a testing ground of that dream of Pasig River, even though it's just a very small scale.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that all? I think we're good. We're good.
Wait, check ko lang. I think, wait, where is that?
Bilis, ano pa na, wala pa namang 15 minutes eh.
Yeah,
Sige,
okay.
sir.
Yeah,
I forgot, no? I think
the
I'm good.
last na, their art district was met, and then art school, crafts and resto. So there's always a relationship na nandito, with a certain culture. Yun lang, sir.
Yeah.
Are you
Last na.
sure?
Tapos na. Yes,
Ay.
sir.
15
For
minutes
next week
time.
na hindi namin nasabi.
15 minutes times 4. Can we go to the
Okay.
master plan, to the top view?
Sige, sige. Trace.
Hang on, I'm fixing the annotation. Top view. Yung flat lang or
Yung
Flat.
master plan, bro.
How's
One
the efficiency ratio?
We haven't calculated it, sir, but it's generally the same.
Okay. The moment I saw this, actually, it didn't need further explanation, but of course, I would still require you to explain it. But I knew in my mind that this is already ready to be produced for the final presentation. So I'm giving a go signal to finish this. So don't get too OC about the little details that are insignificant. Um, we will have a lot of time, maybe not a lot of time, but because I really want us to, if you will be in design 6, I really want us to develop the architecture in such a way towards the end you'll be able to create a walkthrough of the city and then the architecture itself. So it will be a very beautiful project. When I saw this, the top view in itself, with a vision for the open spaces in the post office area, maybe a little bit on the golf course area of the Intramuros, and then how it transitions towards the Mihan, and then it softly transitions to the development and jumps towards the Muslim area community at the northern part. I wanted to live here. This is the kind of vision of the future that I envisioning of the future that I want to have. If you've seen visions of, I always refer, whenever I think of the future, when I envision the future, I always think of two kinds. One is the Renaissance and one is the Dark Ages. I always keep in mind two movies. It's just that probably it's not in your generation. One is I even forgot the title, but the other one is uh, I don't know if you know Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
The Starship Troopers in Buenos Aires, wherein they were when they were checking out their scores, and then you see the skyscrapers and the flying cars, etc. For me, that's that's the renaissance of the future when everything is less, everything is shiny, colorful, digital, everything is clean, etc. And then the dark ages when we fuck up, when we mess up. We're in. There's a movie by Sylvester Stallone wherein you cannot, the ground level is really polluted already, so everyone is actually on the sky. So I think Total Recall is one of them. Like that. So, but this is the renaissance. This is the kind of future that I want to live in, wherein you have the heritage and then you have glossy, not bang glossy. I'm not sure about the architecture yet, but this gives you a picture of how you can combine history and a very positive outlook of the future. So with a sense of community, with a sense of identity, and when a sense of comfort as well, because we're still referencing the town planning of old cities with the intimacy of the spaces. But of course, architecture is still about to develop. So I want you guys to, you don't have to consult me next week unless you are very OC again. but I want you guys to uh, finish this already with the requirements so that I can also focus on other groups. So focus on the
So
finish. Huh?
may question lang kami. I don't know if this is something we're OC about, but yung Kalesa thing, kasi we only observe Kalesas inside Intramuros.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. But will they be galloping on the grass or
Yeah.
We have to look into it, sir.
yeah, they'll be dropping poops there.
Um,
And then if you imagine people hanging out, Kevin on a date, on a picnic, then just poop. So I don't
Actually,
know.
I could I could just say if you look at Calesas closely, they actually have this parang nilalagyan ng not a
Yeah,
diaper, but it's kind of a catchment. So hindi
yeah.
it doesn't poop in those hindi it doesn't scatter as
Yun
the
yun na
old
yung pang
time.
creative typology na.
Yeah, yung
But keep in mind, guys, always um reference precedents, and then at the same time Burnham, because that's what the exhibition is about. What are the Burnham elements here? And then yeah, and then what else? Will is strengthen our precedents on design 6 if you will still be there. And then
Yes.
pag pagdating dito sa master plan ninyo, think about that and think about the golf course if you want to keep it. But if you say I'm not familiar how much it earns as a business, how it,
Yeah.
but what I know about golf courses is that initially when you were showing me this area, of course my mind is always yes, picnic area, it's so nice, very British, but in the UK it's cold. But Filipinos during the daytime they won't use it. Then I was imagining that probably from the historic walls you'll have like a forest, like Fangorn forest, and then you have still some sort of an open grass so that you can still see the post office. So but I remember one of the bad things about golf course that it poisons the soil. I don't know
Yes,
if
sir.
there's
Yes, sir.
if it there's a way to revive it, or there's a time before it becomes fertile again. But uh, the the chemical, I don't
Something we should
know,
consider.
the solution that they put on the grass, on the soil to make the grass green and healthy, it poisons the soil so that it cannot, what I know, it cannot
grow and
boost or grow any species of foliage. So,
Alam ko control niya yung growth, sir.
ano, kinokontrol.
Like, yeah, yung growth rate and the type of species that can grow on the
Yun.
ground.
Yun. So, it's not very,
so sir, if so basically saying, sir, if we find a way, let's say other research from architecture, if it's possible to reclaim that land, and well, for now, what we have kasi is what's possible. So, if possible na to
sorry, what's the
try to
question? I
develop
didn't
on it.
get it. Sorry.
Parang, if it's possible pa rin to reclaim it in some ways, yung soil,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's when we will take to develop it, sir.
yeah. Actually, as it is, I like the development. Try to imagine you're coming from Taft, and then all of a sudden, because we lack open space and we lack parks, so you
Yeah.
provided that this green spaces that's meant to glorify Manila City Hall, those heritage buildings around it, and Intramuros. No cars. Imagine it just greeneries and heritage buildings. This will be, and then you have a lifestyle center on the right. So what else can you ask for?
Yeah.
And maybe when it comes to the transfer of the LRT, I mean, what's stopping you from bringing it underground aside from, because I really think it's the Changge or the hawkers under the concourse, the elevated concourse is just incidental.
Sir, we were planning to look into it pa kasi wala pa kaming research on
Okay.
plane slope and pinimunta natin. Pero sir,
Di ba in
Uh,
EDSA we have concourses where it's underground, sometimes it's elevated.
yes, sir. But yeah, since nag-uusap na tayo, we also we will check that for next time. Pero yung problem din is like how the streets separate or combine into from three areas. Yeah, nagkaka-different. But yeah, we'll consult with you sir next week if we propose it.
Hopefully shorter. Anyway, patapos na yan eh. Consult ko lang yung mga little details. Siguro, develop lang the open, just to refine it, maybe introduce ideas for the open spaces. Like more
Yes.
will you have maze, will you have, kasi it's a big span of land, especially if you are going to tackle the Intramuros golf course. You can have different sections, but it's still greenery, you know what I mean? So, like that. And then, there's a way, for, although I'm not really a fan of it, but probably some people are maybe just to compromise. Like a lot of people are nostalgic about the Tranvia. I don't know, but it's not really important to me. But yeah, I just siguro what I noticed lang is I was about to say maybe that's the reason why you presented last uh, because I see elements of Jacob and Idris here, and then I see elements of Julian,
Nag-sheet making kami starting lunchtime.
and then
Ay,
Julian,
hindi.
ano,
Yeah,
Julian
lunchtime.
and Patrick, and then the Ferris wheel of Julian and Patrick naging what do you call that? He's New York by I forgot his name.
Yung
Yes,
best. Thomas Heather.
Hedwig.
Okay, by Heatherwick. And then ano pa ba? Ayan. So, ang daming elements. Ito yung kila Beo. So anyway, so develop it na lang. And then make sure that you have a strong idea behind like what is the overarching idea behind this. When it's supposed to be at the beginning of the process, but it's okay to work backwards because it's your first attempt to planning. So, but when you are preparing for the final presentation, when you see final presentation, we're talking about the video presentation. Make sure that the process is there. Okay, like every step of the way. Yeah. Good job.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Are you guys the last group?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, wait lang